So here we are. We want to have the storyline file open that we've been working on that has these couple of questions, as well as this query.js file that we worked on for the last session. Okay. So the first thing we're going to want to do is set up the storyline file. Again, I mean, the goal of today's session is we want to have a leaderboard. It's going to look like, I can pull it up. We want to create a leaderboard like this so that whenever people answer this little sample quiz of ours, we can show the scores, and we're pulling this data from the Learning Records store. So that's our goal here. I guess the first thing we can do is go ahead and make that leaderboard slide. So we're going to keep it really simple. So, we have 3 questions and then this results screen. I'm going to make the leaderboard slide right after this results screen. So I'll right click it, go to new slide, basic layouts, and go to blank. Okay, and now I'm going to insert a table. And let's see, how many cells do we want that? It looks like we want it to be 2 by 6. Okay, so at the top, it will just be, we'll have a name over here and a score over here. And we're not going to want to populate these things. I'm just going to center it. Maybe we move the leaderboard down a little bit. We're not going to spend much time styling this. That's not what we're here for. Oh, did you notice a typo in this? Okay, so once we have the framework for our leaderboard, obviously we can't just put in like Devlin 100%. Like, we need to get this information from the Learning Records store. So does anyone have any idea what we are going to put in these cells where we're going to want the user's name and the user's score? What can we put in here for now? Oh, I see what you're talking about, Brian. I found it. I will fix that later. But anyone, what do we put in here? How are we going to wind up getting this to show the user's name and their score based off of what we get from the Learning Records store? Are we going to leave it blank? Are we going to put in, name? What do we do? All right, it looks like I'm going to have to give it to you. We're going to use variables, something we're all probably familiar with at this point. So how I did it, use a variable. Oh, Taylor, yeah, it looks like you got it, but it's after I said it. Maybe there's some lag, I don't know. Okay, so we want to create a variable to hold. Here's how I did it. I can just show you this to show you what we're going for. We're going to create storyline variables and then use these variable references. So, first user, second user, third user, and likewise first score, second score, third score. So let's go ahead and create those variables in storyline. So, and they're all going to be text variables. So first user, second user. So you see what I'm doing? These variables, we're going to wind up changing them based off of the data that we get back from the Learning Records store. So right now, we just need to set them up so that we can actually put them on our leaderboard because we need to actually display the data that we get back. Okay, so I made first, second, third, fourth, fifth user and first, second, third, fourth, fifth score. Once those variables are created, there's a couple of ways you can display them here in the chart. You can either go to the Insert tab, go to Reference, and then select like first user. But if you notice here, to display a variable in Storyline, all you need to do is enclose it with these percentage signs. So you actually don't need to go through those steps in the UI. You can just do percentage sign second user, percentage, and one after. percentage sign, third user, percentage sign, and you get the idea. So let's all take a minute and go ahead and do that in our files if you're trying to follow along here. If anyone has any questions about what we're doing, make sure you ask them. But, just add in these variable references to the slide so that when we change the variables of JavaScript later on, they actually display here in our chart. Hi, Helena. Good afternoon. Okay, so if you need to look at a reference, I have mine set up here. And in case anyone gets behind, I'll go ahead and post the link to the full tutorial here in the chat in case anyone needs to reference that at any point or, just wants to save it for later. But if you are following along and you get this set up, let me know. Just say so in the chat and we'll move forward. And for whoever just joined, all we're doing is setting up this chart with some variable references so that we can display the top users and their top scores. But once we're done with this, we're going to hop over to the JavaScript. Just waiting for some confirmation in the chat. Oh, you got it? Okay, cool. So I think I'm going to hop over to the query.js file now, and we're going to start building out this query. So if you're still getting caught up on this, maybe just give it a couple of minutes. You'll have some time to do that later. But let's see what we're going to do in the code now. So this is the query.js file that we set up last week. I'm probably going to change some things here. Let me see what we did. First let's think about what we want to do. We want to get the scores of everyone who completed this quiz. And with this quiz, since it's only 3 questions, anyone who passed the quiz, their score is going to be 100%. Okay, so we probably don't just want to get the scores of people who passed. We also want to get the scores of people who failed, just so we can have some variability in here. Obviously, in the real world, maybe if you need an 80% score to pass a quiz, you'll have some people who scored 90%, some who scored 95, some who scored 100. And this is just one way that we can use xAPI data. Hopefully, the skills you learn here, you'll be able to use to make different types of leaderboards, like duration leaderboards and that sort of thing. So right now, it looks like the parameter we used last week is going to work for us because we're saying, give us all of the xAPI statements in this learning record store where the object was quiz 1. And right now, the only cases where the object is quiz 1 is when the user passes quiz 1 or when they fail quiz 1. So this is perfect. If anyone wasn't here last week, quick refresher of this file. First, we set up this conf object just like we do in our xAPI statement.js file when we're sending xAPI statements. So we tell it what endpoint we're looking at, and we put in our user and pass so that we can get authenticated with the LRS. Then, of course, we use this little line of code so that the xAPI wrapper kicks into play and communicates and authenticates it for us. After that, we set up this parameters variable. Again, we're using the xAPI wrapper file here. If you're not sure what I mean by that, it's this xAPI wrapper.min.js file that we put into our folders every week. It lets us use these kind of commands. And then we tell it what kind of query we're trying to execute. And we can execute it by agent, object, verb, and a couple of other things. But for this, what we want to do is query the object, this quiz 1 object. Once we do that, we use the wrapper again to execute that query. And we're saying, okay, communicate with the LRS and give us every single xAPI statement where the object ID is this example.com/quiz1. Okay, and I think you all have this in your code. If not, I can copy and paste this kind of stuff. If you want to pull from my LRS, you can use these credentials. But I think if you've been following along, you probably have some statements in your own learning record store. So let's see here. So we execute that, and now what we did here is we use some JavaScript to display these statements on a regular web page. We don't need to do that anymore. So this is going to show our results on a web page. We're not interested in that. We're going to want to change storyline variables based off of what we get. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this. And rather than just show you the code we're going to use, I want you to show you what happens when we execute this. So to do that, I'm going to open up a story file from one of the last sessions. This is when we were measuring duration, okay? So I'm opening up this story file because I know we gave it access to the xAPI wrapper, which means that I'll be able to use this code that we have here where it needs the xAPI wrapper to run. It should also already be authenticated with my learning record store because we had some, well, let's just check. I'm going to try to execute this bit of code first. I'm doing this in the console. And again, you can press F12 to access the console. Okay, so I just set my conf variable, so that's good. So we're authenticated with the LRS now. I'm going to set this parameters variable. I'm going to tell it we want to get all of the objects with this object ID. And now I'm going to try executing that, executing that query. Okay, so that's the good news. So we said give us all of the statements that match these parameters, and in this case we wanted the ones where the object matches this ID, and we said set that equal to a variable called query data. So now if I type in query data, we can see what was returned. We received an array of 34 statements. You see here. So this is every single one of the statements where the object ID equals quiz1. Well, actually, that didn't work because as you can see here, we have example.com/question3. Let me try executing this code together. It's not liking what we're doing here for some reason. Because you see the problem, we executed, we said give us the one where the object matches this object ID, but you can see here the object ID is equal to example.com/question2. So we need to figure out why that's happening. It looks like right now it's giving us every single xAPI statement in the learning record store. Here, let me see this. Yeah, we can see right here, it tells us we have 34 statements in here. So let's try, does parameters work? Let's try that. Okay, so when we query by the actor, it only gives us the one where my email address is devlinpeck@gmail.com. You see, I uncommented that line of code. So there's something going on with this. I'm just going to take a quick look at my query the LRS tutorial. And we'll see what I might have done wrong here. Oh, okay, so you see right here, so I was putting parameters object, but the keyword you have to use here is parameters activity. So you see, that's why that wasn't working. And again, as you know, activity is one kind of object. So this is the perk of having these tutorials, even for me, is I can reference them whenever I make a mistake. So I'm gonna comment back out this agent parameter. I'm going to recopy this, and now we should get what we want. I'm going to refresh this page, and now when we call perfect, now we can see we have 5 statements, and each of the object IDs match this example.com/quiz1. So that's exactly what we wanted. Okay, I'm going to check the chat and see if there are any questions so far. Is everyone following that? I know we just did some troubleshooting, but yeah, the problem was just this activity. We add this as object instead of activity. So as long as that is set to activity, we're good. Any questions? I'm going to dive back into it if we're all feeling okay. All right, then we're diving back into it. So we have this, so when we look at query data, we see it's like this object with the statements key, and the value of the statements key is an array. So watch when we do this, query data dot statements. We can use dot notation to work our way down into this object, just like we use dot notation in to access different parts of the xAPI statement, like you've seen in previous tutorials. So when we do query data dot statements, it just already just jumps to the value of this rather than giving us this bigger object. So now query data dot statements is equal to our list of all of the statements that have this quiz1, example.com/quiz1 as the object ID. So what I want to do is I want to create a new variable here. I'm going to create a variable called statements and set that equal to query data dot statements. So that just makes it easier to work with. And now whenever we want to access this list of statements, we can just do so with the statements variable. Okay. So this is good. Now the problem is it's returning these in probably the order that they were received. So this is stored on August 27th. This one is stored on August 20th, and it's probably August 13th. So we're working our way backwards. So when we do this query, it's just giving us the most recent statements first that match whatever criteria we give it. So, if we were to go ahead and say now, okay, make statements 0 equal to first user and their first score, and statements 1, which would be the second one, equal to the second user and the second score, this leaderboard would only be showing us who completed it most recently. And that's obviously not going to cut it. We want to sort this array based off of the user's scores, okay? And again, if we drill down into this, we can expand this statement, we can expand this result object, and we can see the score information right here. This person scored, got 2 out of, well, this is me. We got 2 out of 3 correct, so it's a 0.66666. So not only do we need to sort them by this scaled score, so we can put the people who scored the highest at the top and then the lowest at the bottom, but we also need to display it as a percentage, okay? Because we don't want to see on our leaderboard, oh, this person got 0.666. What we could do to keep it simple is to show the raw score, but then it's not going to be showing much. Oh, this user scored a 3, this one scored a 2, this one scored a 2. It would obviously be best if we can show this person scored a 100%, this person scored a 66%, and likewise. So let's go ahead and do that. So I made that work by using a little bit of code that I found and manipulated online. I looked up, I Googled like how to sort an array, okay? And so then there's this little function right here. It was a little bit confusing for me. I'm going to paste it over here. I can also paste it in the chat. So what this is doing is I think what this is saying is that we're going to sort this array, because again, we're saying statements.sort. Sort is a JavaScript method, and it takes this function. Okay, I think it's like it's going to be confusing. Array sort method. Okay, so again, it's going to be kind of confusing. I don't know if I need to really explain this. I'm just going to explain to you what it's doing. Okay, so this little function right here is saying take the. I think it's sorting it in descending order. Okay, so this is like ascending order, descending order. It's saying take the highest scaled score and work our way down to the lowest scaled score in these objects. Because again, we're taking statements, and then when we do statements.result.score.scaled, we'll get to this number right here. Because again, this array is statements, and then we're going to the result object, and then we're going to the score object, and then we're going to scaled. So we're saying for each one of these statements in this statements array, look at what the scaled score is on that statement, and then sort them in descending order. Okay. So this little bit of code right here will do exactly what we want it to do. So I'm going to paste this in. So now this function should be sorted. So let's look at what's in the first position now. So now we see the timestamp is August 13th. So before the first one was what, August 27th. So we know that it changed the order somehow. Let's look at the result score. This is perfect. So now in the 0 position, which is the first position in this array, we have an xAPI statement where the user scored a 100% and got 3 out of 3. Okay, so let's look at the second one, result, and then it's already back down into 66%. So only one person got a 100. Let's look at the last statement. The last one is a 0. Okay, do we have anywhere someone only answered 1 correct? 0 again. Okay, and 2. So we have none where someone only answered 1 correct. So it will be 100%, 2 66%, and then 2 0%. Don't go there. Yeah, I mean, looking at this, like I'm a little confused by it. I've only used this to accomplish this goal right here. And that's what it is with JavaScript a lot. It's like, okay, I know I need to sort this array. So once you know the words and it's like, okay, this list is an array and I need to sort it, it's kind of easy to piece stuff together from forums and from the documentation, like what I had pulled up. I just Google like JavaScript sort array descending or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I think I tried some more verbose ways before I was like, I think there has to be an easier way to do this. And then I just stumbled across this method and I was like, oh, this works. This works great. So we're in good shape. Once this line of code executes, this statements array has our sorted information. And as you'll notice, I mean, I keep looking in this console. I hope everyone can see what's going on here and it doesn't look super confusing. These are our 5 xAPI statements. And even though we queried by the object, we have access to the full thing. We can see the person's name. We can see their email address. We can see what their score was. We can even see how long they spent. I guess not on this one because this was before we added the duration tracking, but it's all here. So when it comes time to actually display those pieces, so remember, so look here in the console. If I want to get the first can anyone answer this? Okay, maybe this is a fun challenge. Now that we have this statements array sorted, what line of code can I execute to get the first place user's name? Okay. If you can answer this, I think you have a pretty good understanding of this. So look what I'm going to want to do. I'm going to want to do, we're going to want to get the storyline player because now we know we're going to need to start changing the storyline variables with the actual results from this statements array. So we're going to say player.setVar, and then I think it was first player. What are we going to set this variable to? Or not first player, first user. So we need to change this first user variable, but how do we get the person's name who's in first place? Any answers? That is the challenge. Even if you don't know exactly what to type, what is your idea? What will get us in the right direction? And if it helps, I will pull this up. Okay, so again, this is our array right here. So we want to get this name from this array. I'll give us 8 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Statements.name. Close. Yeah, that was a good guess. So here's why that. So right now, statement is equal to this full array. Okay, statements is equal to this full list. So if we just do statements.name, it's not going to know which one we're grabbing the name of. Because remember, look, if we call statements right now, it gives us a list of 5 statements. Okay, so what would get us closer to that is statements 0. Because remember from last week, we can access the different elements of an array using these square brackets. And you see right now they have their number. They start at 0 and it goes up to 4. So their arrays are 0 indexed. So if we do statements 0, it will give us this first statement in the array. And now you can see we just have this full xAPI statement that's in that first position. And now we can't quite go statements 0.name because we have to work our way down in the tree, right? So we can do statements 0.actor because that's a top level child, just like actor, object, result, verb. So we would do statements 0.actor and then we can do .name because name is a child of actor. So we use dot notation to work our way down. So you see when we execute that line of code, we get that name. You have to kind of work your way down like the branches of a tree. You work down from this full array to get the first statement, and then you want to go into the actor object, and then you want to grab that name property. Okay? Any questions about how we did that? I'm gonna show how we would do it here now. So we would say, player.setVar first user it will be statements 0.actor.name. Okay, and then it will give us that that weird name. I don't know whose name is Devlin Quiz 1. Celebrity name Quiz 1. I don't know, but we're just going to do the same thing now for all of these user variables. Okay, so watch, I'm going to populate that. So second user will be equal to statements 1.actor.name. Third user will be equal to statements 2. And again, it's third user, but it's only statements 2 because we start at 0. So that's just something to remember about JavaScript arrays. Fourth user is equal to statements 3.actor.name. And fifth user is equal to statements 4.actor.name. Okay, and we're going to use the same approach for the scores. Okay, so for score will be, okay, so now that we did that with the name, tell me what this will be equal to right here. So we want to set this first score variable. So what JavaScript do we execute to get access to that? So again, we're starting with this array. I'll expand this so you can see. How do we access this scaled score right here? I'll give us 20 seconds or so. Okay, I'm gonna hop over and see if anyone answered. No responses yet. Will, I know you've got this. How do we get this scaled score? How do we work our way down into this? Okay, I'm going to give us the answer in a second. I know there's some lag, so hopefully that's not causing the problem here. Can't type that fast. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. So I'll show you just like I did last time, because if you can understand this, if you can understand how we work our way from this statements array down into the statement, you can query the LRS however you want and get whatever data you want. Because you have all of the statements here. Once you understand this concept, it's really easy to get to the different pieces of information. So we're at the statements array. Okay, so we're going to want to do statements 0, just like we did before, so we can grab that first statement. So I'll just do it again. So statements, we want to only work with the first statement right now, because that's the person who's in first place now that we sorted the array. And now we want to work our next level down. So it would be statements 0.result, okay? Because we know that our score is part of the result object. You see our score is down here, the scaled score. So we would do statements 0.result. And now you can see, now we have this result object from the first statement, and we can see that there's the user's response, which it looks like we just set equal to a placeholder. A score object, and this object has 4 different properties. So we need to go to statements 0.result.score, because again, we need to work our way down to the next child in line, and then we would do .scaled. Okay, so we have to work our way pretty deep. Statements.result.score.scaled. So let me show you. So it would be statements 0.result.score.scaled. And then it gives us that 1, which is right here. Okay? So if there's anything you're going to take away from this session, it should really be how you're going to work with this statement. So just to give you the big picture view again, because this is really important. All of this stuff, this is just stuff you'll copy and paste from my tutorial or from your previous files. But what you need to know is once you tell it what query you're trying to execute and what statements you want, it's limited what you can query based off of. A refresher from last week, we can't say, give us all of the statements where someone scored 100%, because we can only query off of these elements that I list in this tutorial. Agent, verb ID, activity ID, timestamp, okay? So we get all of these ones where they pass this quiz, we execute it and set that equal to query data. We access that statements object that gets returned, because these statements are the ones that have this ID. We sort it, and then we can drill our way down into the different parts of the statements using this dot notation, working our way down child by child like a tree. So first score, we're setting equal to statement 0.result.score.scaled, right? And so it's going to be the same for each of these. Only instead of getting the first one for second score, we're going to want the second one. For third score, we're going to want that third statement, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now this should be good, what you see here. Any questions? Statement 0.result.score.scale. Yep, Will, that's perfect. Any questions about this? Again, all this is doing is it's picking out the pieces we want from this statements array, and it's setting them equal to these storyline variables that we set up here. So I want to do a couple more things. So if we execute this code as soon as someone opens the storyline course, what's going to happen? Imagine if they answer the quiz and they get a 100%, and then they get to the leaderboard. Well, these variables were already set right when they opened the course. So even though they scored a 100%, they're not going to show up on the leaderboard if we executed this code before they even got a chance to take the quiz. So what we want to do is we want to make sure this code only executes once they get to the slide with the leaderboard. And we're going to do that. Does anyone have any ideas how we'll do that? So we don't want this code to execute whenever someone loads up the course, which would in turn, be whenever someone loads the JavaScript file. We only want to execute it when they get to that leaderboard slide. Create a function. Yes, Will. That is exactly right. So here's what we're going to do. So we're going to create a function. We're just going to do function populate leaderboard. Is there a way to... I'm sure there's a way. Oh, there we go. Okay, so you notice I just added this populate leaderboard function. We're going to add the opening curly bracket here and the closing curly bracket after our last player.setVar method. Yep, Will is killing it. So we don't need this conf variable inside of the function because it's okay if we get authenticated with our leaderboard right when this file loads. I mean, get authenticated with our learning record store. And similarly, if we might want to execute this code. Okay, let me backtrack. So in this storyline course, we're still going to want to send all of these statements when someone is going through this course. So maybe what we would want to do is we would want to just move this populate leaderboard function into our into the xAPI statement.js file that we've already been using. Well, nice. Okay, and let me just show you the reason we set this function is now from storyline. Whenever someone gets to this leaderboard slide, we're going to create a new trigger. We're going to execute some JavaScript whenever the timeline starts. So again, we only want to execute this function when someone gets to this leaderboard slide. So when the timeline starts here, we're going to just type in populate leaderboard. And that's how we execute a JavaScript function. Okay. So just like how we execute the JavaScript function send statement and we add all of these parameters like parameter 2, we're passing in these arguments. We don't need to do that here because we don't have any parameters. So we're just going to do an open parenthesis and a close parenthesis. And then you can just press OK. Okay. And I'll just show you again, like when someone passes the course, you can see here we're saying send statement. We're doing that same thing with this populate leaderboard function, only we don't have any of this stuff in between because we want to make it populate the same thing every time. Okay? So when you add that populate leaderboard function, we are good. All I want to do now, because I maybe I want to just get 1 right out of 3, I'm going to add this function. I'm going to open up some code that we use. I'm going to open that xAPI statement.js file that we would have worked on previously. So whatever your last session was that you were a part of where we executed some JavaScript, I'm going to use the manage xAPI project one because that was our latest one. And I'm going to open this xAPI statement.js file. Because again, this still sets our conf object, so that's taken care of. I'm just going to scroll down to the very bottom and add this populate leaderboard function. Outside of any other curly brackets, we want this to be standing on its own. So as long as we link to this xAPI statement.js file now, the storyline project will have access to this populate leaderboard function. Okay? So you could just link 2 separate files. If you're trying to set this in both places, because we set the conf object here and we also set it in this file, I suspect that it's going to throw an error because, well, here we're using var, but here we're using const. So we're saying this variable is not going to change. So if this code executes first and then it tries executing that, I think it will say conf is already defined and throw an error. So I'm just going to keep it simple. We're going to use this one JavaScript file. I pasted in this function at the very end. I'm going to save this. Let's publish this storyline course. So I'm going to publish it to my desktop. We're going to call it Populate Leaderboard. I'm going to publish the entire project. Oh, I just realized something too, but we'll take a look at it in a second. Let's just see if this works. So I'm opening this project. We know we're going to need to open this story.html file because we're going to need to add those scripts tags. So you've all seen me do this a lot. Now that I have this xAPI statement.js file, I'm going to save that in the new output folder. So populate leaderboard, xAPI statement.js, that's perfect. I'm going to grab an xAPI wrapper.min.js file, because we know we need that in our published output folder as well. So now we have these two script tags, just like we've done in all the previous weeks. And I just need to open one of the older index files because I'm also going to grab those script tags that we use. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to grab these script tags, which link our story file to the JavaScript files that we want, the two that we added. Paste it. I saved that. So now when I open it, we should be in good shape. So this is the new folder. I'm going to go ahead and open this. We'll open the console just to see if we're getting any errors logged. So now we'll say our name is Devlin Leaderboard. Okay, so we want to get only one correct. So we'll answer this one correct. We failed. Okay. Well, okay, this is a good sign, but the issue I'm seeing is I thought we just got one correct, but it's not showing us here. Let me see. So it's not showing the xAPI statements right here that we tried sending. Send statement is not defined. Oh, okay. I know what happened here. The issue that we're experiencing is, and when we did that manage xAPI project one, we broke down all of these functions into smaller functions, but the file that I started working from was the measure duration project. So I still have these longer functions where we're sending like 10 arguments. But I use the JavaScript file as if we already broke them all down. You see here, send passed, send failed. So that's why we didn't send any statements from this project that I just went through. Just a mistake on my end. But that's not really what this session is about. This session is about this functionality right here. Okay, so you notice we didn't really accomplish what we wanted to with showing up percentages. Okay, so look at how I resolved that in this course. What I did is I said, take every statement that we get returned. You don't need to fully understand this code. I just want to show you. Take every statement that we just ranked in that statements object. We had 5 in our case. And we said, go get that scaled score. You see .result, .score, .scaled, and make it equal to that scaled score times 100 with a percentage sign after it. Okay, so this is just one line of code to do that all the way through. I think we could also do that right here. So I think we could just add, times 100 plus a percentage sign. Okay, and we could just do this for each of these. I don't know if Storyline will have an issue with us executing these math operations inside of the set var method, but we're about to find out. Okay, so I'm just going to save this. It's already saving to this folder. So all we need to do now is refresh this page and give it another go. I'm going to restart. I'm going to try to just jump ahead now to the results, to this leaderboard slide. Okay. So you can see now we are, we have this 100%, but we probably want to round this. We don't want it to have all of these repeating numbers. So JavaScript round to 2 decimal places, a round to integer. So again, I just looked this up. The round function rounds it to the nearest integer. So that's super easy. So all I'm going to do now is, we're going to get this scaled score. Let me think. So I want to round what's right here. So I don't want to round the 0.66, which is right here, because that will just round it to 1, and that will make it a 100%. But what I do want to do is I want to take that 0.66 and multiply it by 100, which will give me 66.666, and I want to round that to the nearest number, which will make it 67. So I'm going to use that round method right here around this. So you see how we have to be kind of strategic about what we're rounding? Because if I just round the 0.66, everything's going to be 100% as long as they get more than, as long as they get two or three right. So here we go. I'm just adding this round method, and this is built into JavaScript. So, we use it just like we would use a function, but these are called methods because they're built into the JavaScript, programming language. So I'm going to, I just need to do it right here. And let's try this again. Oh, I didn't like that. Oh, it looks like it really didn't like this. It didn't like us using this method inside the player.setVar. Let me see if everyone's still with me. Oh, yeah, that's why this isn't working, because this is giving us a string. Wait. No. This right here is still a number. Okay. I think the problem is that we're using this round function inside of the setVar function. So here's what I'm going to do. Let first score JS equal. I'm going to just. This is just going to be for testing purposes. Let's see if this works. So for this first one, or maybe I should just try it for all. Well, let's see. It didn't work because I think we're getting an error. Oh, it's saying round is not defined. Oh, is it math.round? Oh, okay. So I can't just use round, I have to use math.round. So when we access this math object, or maybe it's called a prototype or something, but when we access this math object, it will make these different methods available to us. So I was just moving a little bit too fast. Hopefully seeing how we do this is giving, giving some people some ideas of how I usually work when I'm trying to figure this stuff out. Just some Googling, trying different things until we get it working. In my tutorial, I didn't have to do the rounding because I think the number of questions I had, it was just like worked out the whole numbers. So now this should work. So let's refresh this. Here we go. It works. So it rounded that 66.666 to a whole number, which is 67. It added that percentage sign, and we did it. I know this is just one application of how we can use xAPI data to modify variables in a storyline course, but bear with me. I think you all will be able to follow this. So, we're pulling the user's name here. What file should I open? Let me see. Okay, so for example, when we're sending this send past function, we have the user's name because they entered it on the first slide, right? Now, what if, and we have the user's email as well. Now, what if we execute a query where instead of saying, or, we can say, okay, we want the activity to be quiz 1. Maybe instead of saying that, we want to say, we want all the statements where the verb is equal to past, this ID right here, and where the actor is equal to mail2 plus this uEmail.js variable. So using this variable right here, which would be different, the value would be different depending on who is taking the course. We can say, show me all the times where the user passed this quiz 1 activity when their email address is equal to the user's email address. And if you get a variable returned, then maybe you change a variable in storyline, like, user passed quiz 1, which can be in a completely different course. Because again, the data in the LRS is available no matter what course you're in. You can pull that data and say, did the user pass this quiz? If so, set this, quiz 1 pass variable equal to true. And if there is no record of them passing that quiz, or, we can reverse it. If there's record of them failing the quiz, so we would be looking for this failed verb ID, then maybe we would show them a different module or show them a different set of questions. And we can do that all conditionally using a true or false variable. So feel free to ask me questions about that too. That's how you can get into adaptive learning experiences. And I think that'll be a really good opportunity for me to do some courses or something about that in the future. I think Anthony Altieri kind of shows how you can use that functionality I just explained to do some kind of adaptive projects. But that's how you can start using this data to show personalized learning based off of what users have done in the past. And I hope that little example gives you the idea of what's really possible with that. All right. Did you have to take out the first one? No, I didn't have to take out the first one. Nicole is asking about this. So all I did here is I created a variable called first score JS, and I set it equal to the same thing that we would have had there anyway. So all we're doing is we're holding this we're holding this value, which would be right here. We would put that in a variable called second score JS, and then we would just put that here. It's not necessary. It's just a variable. So we can replace that with this, and it's the exact same thing as what I just had. It's just I was using a variable. Hope that answers your question. Let's see. Do we have any other questions or any comments about that session? I mean, this is obviously some advanced stuff we're working through at this point. I mean, a lot of you have been around here for 10 weeks, so hopefully you're feeling at least way more comfortable with xAPI than you were before. Or maybe it's the other effect, and you're like, man, I really didn't know that there was this much you had to know about xAPI. And there's not. I mean, what we've been going through is like technical implementation stuff. Obviously, there's a lot you can do with xAPI without code, but you're not going to have, it's going to depend on what the vendors make available. You're going to have to rely on their default xAPI output. But this is the type of stuff I work on with my clients. Yeah, exciting stuff. I'm sure based off of the participation, everyone does feel a different level of comfort with this. But you've heard me mention it before. I have a session scheduled for October 1st. Okay. Let's see here. So I have this session right here scheduled for October 1st. Articulate and xAPI show and tell. And that's where I think you all could come in for 4 to 8 minutes, not very long, show off some kind of xAPI functionality that you've been able to implement on your own using this custom approach. Okay, you have all of my tutorials available to help you. If you're a part of the Slack channel, feel free, this xAPI channel, you can always ask questions here. If you want to present and you're having trouble figuring something out, I can hop on a call with you and help you get it working. But I think this would be a really good opportunity to get something xAPI related for your portfolio, and also just hopefully we'll get a decent little audience to show up, and it will put you in the spotlight for a little bit, just for learning this skill set, because it's really not a common skill set, and there obviously is a lot you can do with it. So I'm gonna be publicizing it over the next few weeks. Hopefully we can get between 5 and 8 presenters. I think a few people have already signed up, but I did put together this form just to kind of help you flesh out your idea. And it can be anything, it can be, oh yeah, I just made this tab interaction and storyline, and I want to send some xAPI statements to know which tabs the users are clicking. Okay, it can be something really simple like that. I think that's still impressive for someone who, a lot of people don't even know that that's possible. But I think most of you wouldn't have much trouble, adding xAPI tracking to say which tab someone clicked on. You can do that. You can go beyond and say, oh, I want to make 2 separate quizzes, and whatever questions the user failed in this quiz, I want to show it to them in this next quiz, and do something adaptive or personalized like that. That's obviously more advanced because you have to use this querying approach. But I'm going to go ahead and share this link here in the comments. And yeah, please consider presenting. Maybe an opportunity to get some more hands-on help from me if you've been needing it but didn't want to ask, because I think it'll be really cool if we can get a nice diverse selection of what's possible with xAPI and Articulate Storyline. And and added benefit is it's a portfolio piece for you. So please take that form, consider filling it out. The earlier we know you want to get involved, the better. And I can even help you think of ideas and stuff. Reach out if you want to bounce ideas around. Will, that's a great idea, a section on video metrics. There is a video profile which defines how to send xAPI statements based off of videos. So that's very defined. So now we're looking at, we want to make sure we use the right answered verb ID. So the profiles go a step beyond that. I don't think devilmpeck.slack.com is an actual link, but I will share that link here. So I'm just going to share the Slack link. I think I saw Brian ask that on a previous session, but I didn't catch it in time. Invite people, copy invite link. Here we go. So if you're not in the Slack already, you can use that link to join it. Also, I think you saw I have some other events next. So the 10 series, this is done. You all are troopers for sticking it out. Next week, I'm doing a more general data-driven e-learning design session, and we're going to talk about these specific things we can track with xAPI, like duration and all of that. But I'm going to take it a step further, and instead of talking about, here's all the data you can possibly collect, I'm going to talk about how you can use that data to make improvements to your e-learning. So it might be pretty basic for you guys. The short of it is that you use this data to identify user experience issues and better understand user behavior. But we're gonna go more, a bit more into detail. And then for those of you who have been in the xAPI Challenges app, you might have noticed, it's like automatically checks whether or not you sent the xAPI statement. It's using all these different tools and email automation software. So the following week, I'm doing a session about how I built that. And I think that'll be really cool for some of you, especially if you're interested in sending automated emails based off of xAPI statements. That's my favorite part about building that app. So that is that. I'm here, as always, if anyone has any questions. Just because this series is over doesn't mean that we're stopping with the xAPI content. It just means that I think it's going to be a bit more suited for a general audience and not all of you sadists who stuck through the technical talk. And grapple with all of this. So there's more stuff coming. Also xAPI and Rise content in the works. Just a little teaser for that, but I'll be talking about that more down the line. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Here's the last time I will prompt for contribution. No, not going to be asking for any more donations in the next sessions, but if you got value out of the series, now's your chance to help support it, but no worries. I just like doing it to help people. So good. Will, are you going to show that project off in 3 weeks on October 1st? That's a great way to pay it forward too. Let's get it out there. What's possible. And people always ask, I want to see examples of what's possible with xAPI, in real life. So I think this show and tell will be pretty cool to show some of those possibilities rather than just having me talk about them. Alrighty, it is 2:00 for me. We're gonna call it a wrap. Not enough time. Well, let's talk. We can figure out something. But okay, cool. All right, everyone, stay in touch. Maybe I'll see you next week at that more general session, but I'll be around. Reach out with any questions and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.